Hello friends, I am Chevy. Welcome to my shed. How are you today? How's life in your world? How's things where you are? I hope it's fantastic. Everything here is great. It was a beautiful day today. Well, I say was because it's about to start raining, but whatever. Absolutely fabulous. Like super, super thick, misty morning. I love those mornings for some reason. Whatever. I'm dodging the subject. The subject of today's video is the book that I said I was going to make this year. If you go back to January of this year, 24, I declared, I set a goal that I was going to publish a book by the end of this year. I made a very specific goal. That very specific goal was publish a book. It was not write a book. It was not publish a novel. It was just publish a book, whether that's 40 pages or 400 pages, whether it's prose or poetry or photographs, or even I was willing to accept the idea of publishing other people's work, or even taking stuff that's in the public domain and re-editing it and publishing it. The goal was to publish a book. And officially, that project is canceled. I'm not going to do it. And for a few reasons. Number one was when I published a video about it could be somebody else's work, whatever, quite a few people said, would that be as satisfying? And I get it. Like, as a artist, no, it wouldn't have been nearly as satisfying. But the goal was to learn the publishing process. The goal was to figure out what it takes to get an ISBN, to get a UPC, to put together a cover, to put together the interior of the book, to upload it to printers. What I discovered is there's not a lot of work in that. That's actually really simple. And services in today's world, there's print-on-demand services that make that super simple. Like it's either you download a template, you copy and paste your text, and it's done. Like you don't really have to do a whole lot of work. Now, if you want it to look fancy and nice, sure, then layout is going to be a little bit more involved. But I figure if I had a book today, if I had a finished manuscript right now of, say, a few hundred pages, there would be no problem with me having that published in a couple of weeks. None at all. The problem is I don't have 200 pages. I don't even have 40 pages. I mean, that's not true. I could probably do this still, but I'm not going to, and this is the real reason. I don't like what I've written. I don't like it for a very specific reason, and that reason is it's way too negative. I wasn't sure when I started this project whether I was going to write a novella or I was going to write a collection of short stories or what it was, but pretty early on, I remembered my poetry. I have a lot of poetry, and I thought, oh, that could be it. Like, in my 20s, I was writing a ton of poetry, and I always wanted to make like a coffee table book where I would show you the finished poem, and then I would have like the handwritten edits, like the originals. Like I would photograph those and compile it into like here's the full finished edited poem, and here's what I started with. And I thought that'd be a really interesting way to look at it because, at that point in time, I was writing a ton of poetry, and there wasn't really anybody showing their process. There's never been like, musicians will sometimes upload their handwritten lyrics and show their process. That wasn't a thing, voyeurism at that time was not a popular thing, and I thought it'd be really cool to do. And at that time, I thought I was a poet. And in fact, that was going to be the title of the book. I thought I was a poet, or I thought I was going to be a poet. As that evolved, I realized I didn't really want to put together just a collection of poetry. I wanted to tell stories about those poems and about those points in my life when I wrote those poems. And I wanted to show photographs because through all of this, photography often accompanied my poems. And so it would be this weird collection of essays and poems and photography and maybe even a few stories. I don't know. But I thought it'd be really fun. And so that's what I have been working on this year. And to tell you the truth, I have enough collected material that it would probably be, maybe even a couple of 100 pages of work. But as I was writing these things, so let's say I took some poems from my teenage years and I wrote like a little introductory essay about them. And then the poems. Well, as I started to go back recently, like within the past month or two, and start trying to like put this whole thing into a collected work, and I read what I wrote about those poems, the idea being that these are like my, quote, juvenilia, meaning, an artist's earlier works before they found themselves. That's a kind of a weird word when I'm not really an artist and I'm not a known person to have juvenilia. Nobody gives a shit. That was kind of part of it, and that was part of the story. And I decided, oh, this isn't telling the full story. Let me finish telling the full story, because I had remembered some parts about the particular poems that I chose. I remembered some more stuff about them, and so I started adding on to that. And then I did it to the next story, and then the next section. And what I found was all of these things kept devolving into this negativity about my life, about my parents, about the way I grew up, about society, about what. And it was just this. It ended up being this kind of angsty teenage nonsense, and I'm a 45-year-old man. Like, I don't feel this way anymore. The way that I felt when I was a teenager and I wrote those poems was a very valid way of feeling at that time. I was very angsty, and I was angry at my parents, and I was angry at the way I was brought up, and whatever. And so I wrote these poems to be this kind of like middle finger to all of that, to the establishment, to the patriarchy, or whatever you want to say. But I don't feel that way anymore. So why did I feel the need to kind of, instead of explaining it as like, this is how I felt at the time, I explained it as, this is the fact. Like, my life sucked. My parents weren't happy. I wasn't happy. And that's just, it's just tiring. I don't want to write negative nonsense constantly. Yeah, the poems speak for themselves, and maybe that would have been the better choice, to just, here they are, without trying to explain them and say, this is nonsense that I wrote when I was a teenager. But I don't need to devolve into the constant negativity anymore. I want to move away from that in my life. That's not who I am anymore. I don't feel that way anymore. I have a good relationship with my parents. I don't feel like, that's not who I am. So why am I still leaning on this time in my life, or these times in my life, whether it's my first failed marriage, my first marriage, my only failed marriage, or my parents, or school officials, or whatever, the military. Like, why do I have to lean on this, like, oh, woe is me? Because that's just, maybe it's a little too like covert narcissist or something. I don't know. I just don't like it, and so I'm not going to publish it. That doesn't mean I won't maybe someday figure out a way to rewrite it to tell a better story, and to share these things in a more like hopeful light. But for right now, it's done. I don't have time to finish it. I'm not going to finish it, and I don't see myself writing anything else currently. Right now, I'm experimenting with my bass and learning music and trying to find musicians to play with, and that's got my focus, and that's fulfilling my creative need. So the book is dead. It's a dead project, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it's kind of a hard thing to admit, because when I set a hard goal for myself, I go for it. And I did go for it, but I'm also learning to be graceful with myself and say, you know what, right now is not the time. I have lots of other potential things that I could write or do or put into the world, and when I get the energy for those, I'll focus on those, and perhaps that'll turn into the book project someday. But setting a hard, fast goal, I don't need it, and I'm okay with giving myself the grace of saying, it's not going to work out, so let's just cancel the project. There you go. Rain is happening. Thank you for being here as always. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, being amazing friends and wonderful people. I really appreciate you. And I'll see you again tomorrow. Today's 1,000 plus little things happy, successful people do differently. We are learning 19 quick tricks to feel better instantly. Number 7, dress to feel your best. When we know we are looking our best, we naturally feel better. There's a lot of truth to that, honestly. This is me all the time. I'm a t-shirt and jeans dad, 99% of the time. But if I want to feel grown up, or feel like if I want to stand up a little straighter, I know that putting on a dress shirt and maybe a suit jacket, it does change the way I feel about myself. And I think that though I can sit around in jeans or a shirt, and right now I have on sweatpants all day, every day, it feels good to put on regular kind of dress casual clothing and feel better. That's a very, very good tip. Try it.